Alright, doing another video, draft physics and such. Yeah, not really, probably not a good purpose to this one, just a general conversation about the lack of conversation and the fact that the pseudoscience sort of is winning in all kinds of respects. I mean, even the scientists have gotten kind of just silly. I mean, I could illustrate that by just going to the subscription box, and it's just it just happens to be more pitiful than usual. But it's this idea of just clown physics. It's girly physics. It's just really, it's just no good. But anyway, and that's mixed with the hard mathematics. So it's either one way or the other. Either layers of convoluted mathematics are superficial glances at reality, where they don't even pay attention to what beam splitters do and how they work, and none of that matters, and we'll just slough over all that stuff. So anyway, again, nothing interactive, nothing where ideas are challenged and argued, and just nothing good. So it's just very depressing that just can't find anything of value in this medium regarding a conversation about reality in some sort of serious context. So anyway, the whatever, Lucio something. Right, most people don't want the truth. Well, that's a quote. And of course they want to question, let's see, as you said, they want to seek metaphysical bullshit, and they want to believe that somehow they have free will, etc. And of course they won't question reproduction and nature. Okay, that's a sort of different subject. As you said it in your other channel a while ago, tons of people will give more value to a 2-year-old human or a person, whatever, so obnoxious. Yeah, anyway, some of that's not related to this channel. And then we got this other idiot. He's just going on and on and on about this stupid multiverse shit. So this is the last one. To post another comment and blocking you. So the multiverse is an irrelevant subject. There's actually no evidence that any other universes exist. No evidence that they can communicate with each other if they ever did exist. No evidence of anything valuable in knowing of it. If it existed, it just doesn't have any meaning whatsoever. It's just speculating about talking bears. It's just absolute bullshit. So he says it's about fine-tuning. So what if your universe wouldn't go very far? Who said it should? It's not the point. The point is you would want to bring this up as if fine-tuning is evidence of something. And my argument is, if you're saying something's fine-tuned because it makes a square and it makes a circle that are square and round, that's not exactly fine-tuning. So fuck you. A universe can exist without complex things in it. Don't you agree? I don't have any reason to even contemplate the existence of whatever steaming shit universe or whatever. Whatever. It just doesn't matter. Who cares? There's no evidence for believing in it, to think about it, to waste any time worrying about the multiple universes. Most people, the most probable universe is indeed one with nothing complex exists. So you say so. Again, you keep assuming that there can be a fundamental part to a universe that doesn't have squares and rounds in it. Your assumption that there can be some origin mechanism, okay, some smallest bit that doesn't have any properties, is retarded. Now you should tell us why the universe we found ourselves in, that is not the case. So again, I never argued that other universes exist. I never argued that a universe could exist without having rational geometry. So why should I indulge in this conversation at all? Maybe I'll just block you now. I never said the universe had to make a platypus. I didn't say you did. My argument is that there's nothing about our existence that there's any indication that the universe even does this, even if you had the same exact universe as this and just mixed it up, stirred it up in the beginning. that you'd ever even get this, anything close to this, ever again. Ever. There's no evidence that this is something that happens. I said it did make a platypus, and against all odds. There is no fucking odds. The odds against things are just as much as the odds of the infinite probability in your fucking notion of reality. In your notion of reality, there's an infinite amount of time to do infinite things. Okay, in my reality, I don't have to believe there's any such thing as time. Time is something that only exists when you have a universe with things moving in it. And if there's a point where this universe stops, when it dies of heat exhaustion, then there isn't anything that's timing anything anymore. So anyway, when something happens against all odds, you should come up with some more reasonable explanation for that, and then we got lucky. Why would I come up with any other explanation? If lightning strikes my front yard 3 times and I say, wow, isn't that amazing, I should come up with some godly reason for why it happened? No. It's just the law of probability, shithead. And there is no law of probability in these circumstances. It's like saying I could throw Yahtzee dice and there's a theoretical possibility that they all land on top of each other and that they all have the number 5 facing up. It's theoretically possible, but guess what? You'll never do it. Ever, 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 ever. So even though it's theoretically possible, you'll never do it. Okay. Where is the evidence that the constraints must produce geometry? The argument is that without geometry they can't get complex. That's the only argument. So if you want to have a universe that has complexity, it's going to need geometry. That's the only point being made. And clearly I would point out that the very fact of existing, something existing, means it must have a property of some kind. A universe that doesn't create squares can't exist? Question mark. Yes, that's right, it can't. It can't exist in any form where you'll notice that it exists. As I pointed out, if all the squares are red and all the pieces are red, there's no happening in the universe. If the forces are all the same color and they interact with each other in a purely kinetic way, there'd be no way to tell when they hit each other or miss each other. It would be an identical circumstance. So yes, it would be a non-evolving, nothing universe. So fuck you. Like I said, you post another comment about multiverses, you're done here. Just an idiotic, stupid subject. I can't possibly have any relevance. Again, based on what is the relevance of this? I have no logical reason to believe they exist. I have no logical reason to assume this universe ends or begins or did any of this shit anyway. I have no reason to wonder about it because there's no connection between it and the circumstance of my existence on this planet. It's useless information. Alright, anyway. So another person posted these 3 links to Ken Wheeler modification videos, you know, with the little images, and you know, somebody went through a lot of trouble to defend Ken's physics as something real, and so I'll play some of it just because it's hilariously, you know, there's no magnetism in any of it, it's just a bunch of swirly bits. But I'll make some arguments about some of it. So anyway, he gives a very good illustration of Ken's theory, and from how I hear you trying to explain Ken's theory, watching the videos could be helpful. Well, again, I don't see how it could be helpful because it's, again, doesn't say anything. It just keeps talking about these swirly bits that are somehow creating magnetism, and you're just like, well, how exactly does that create magnetism? I can easily repeat his experiments. There are no experiments, okay? So, alright, repeat his stupid one with the copper pipe where he measured the weight of the magnet beforehand by putting it on the side of the scale. Yeah, do that one again. And do that one where he pushed the plastic bottle against the wall. That was a great experiment. What experiments has he done? I'm sorry, I can't recognize an experiment in any of Ken's experiments. Watching the videos could be very helpful. I can easily repeat his experiments and also in different ways that support the theory. Support what theory? There's no theory of magnetism. There's just a theory of swirly shit. There's no explanation of attraction and repulsion. There's no demonstration of how these swirly bits accomplish the task and yet can't be detected with any normal instrumentality on Earth. So why not look at the first things first and explain the magnetic field lines? I don't know which ones you're talking about, but fine. What I would like to see here you explain, I'd like to see Ken explain the magnetic field lines, the ones we see when you put iron filings on a magnet. Is how the field works around a magnet and make experiments that support it. So again, make experiments. I don't even know what that means, but if you're going to use equipment, things to detect magnetism, you shouldn't be using things like ferrocells, okay, and CRT screens, because they're more complicated than the magnet. Jeez. I'm sure many will replicate it and try to tear it down as it should be. I don't know what that explains. I don't know what that means. Explain how a magnet works in your official version. I've already done that, retard, over and over again. I'll make a category for magnets. I've done many videos on magnetism. Illustrate how the fields behave. Draw, animate, and explain why. It's on the website. I can go to the website, right? Do I have the website on here? I believe it's here. We'll do a quick... there's a very good image of it right here. This explanation still has a bit in it that I have to take out, the neutral bits. But you can see the black-red arrows go in, red comes out, black comes out. That's the nature of the magnet. It's a filter for the force coming in from the gravitational force is filtered by the magnet. That's the expression of the field. The force lines are clearly just lines of pressure, and a magnet will line up in balance between the negative and the positive repulsion and attraction on those lines. And it's perfectly rational. And once they establish those lines, then the magnets repel each other. That's why they stay on the lines, is because they definitely become magnetized lines, and those lines become repulsive to each other. Not very complicated. Alright, show experiments that support your explanation. All the existing experiments support my explanation. Information about how magnets works should be old knowledge. Old now knowledge. Old no knowledge. I don't know. But that is wrong then. I don't know. There's no point in going backward to look for the truth, okay? Because it's all covered in mysticism and wrong assumptions. So it's really a big mistake. Alright, so let's do this, the cart ones first, the ones using, well, we'll do this one was really bad as an example, so we will start at the bottom and work our way up. Alright, they're all just, a lot of them have music instead of talking, but this one does have talking. But some guy called UFO Politics with a Christian cross in it. Who knows what this guy's agenda is. Alright, so let's just move on to the experimental part. So he's attempting to disprove that you can create a magnetic field with a magnet that doesn't move and a coil that doesn't move. And he's demonstrating it by dropping a heavy piece of steel onto the magnet, which clearly is creating another magnet. As the steel gets close to the neodymium, so it's a very powerful magnet, by the way, it magnetizes. So he's creating another magnetic field, and he's extending the field of the original magnet by doing that also. So he's definitely moving the magnetic field. So this whole experiment is just nonsense. But let's just play the part where he's dropping the magnet, just so you see that part. You'll just get that this doesn't mean anything. You're dropping the magnet. You're obviously creating a lot of motion and a huge amount of, you're moving a huge amount of magnetized mass in the process. It's just idiotic to say, oh, I didn't do anything. It should be in here somewhere where he drops it. put it there. It should be on here somewhere.
Install the coil so it keeps being flush with the top of the magnet, and it's comprehended basically from the middle to the top of it. So right now I have the scope set at 5 volts. It's on roll mode, so it'll be same way traveling the signal, but I'll stop it. And
so this is what he calls
I'm gonna be
proving that magnetism is created without motion. So this is this demonstration of non-motion
displacing
creating electricity
field with the contact of this iron.
So you heard it. It's so loud. It's a heavy piece of steel. The steel is attracted to the magnet. It moves at a very high velocity. Obviously, it creates a voltage peak. No surprise at all. So really a useless video. Doesn't prove or demonstrate anything. Complete waste of 20 minutes. You know. So that one was a little disappointing. He has nice technology, nice oscilloscope. I wish I could afford one. But anyway, alright, so moving on to the other video. And I can't remember what this was at the moment, so we'll just wait until we get there. Oh, this is so this is where he's using a cart screen. And why can't my... why doesn't it show? It's funny. I don't know where the... we'll turn the sound off till we need it. We don't really need it anyway. Alright, so he starts moving the magnet around the screen. I don't know why he turns the screen sideways. This didn't make any sense at all. But I'll get to the bit that's important. So there's all kinds of Ken Wheeler jibber jabber in here. But this is the most dramatic part of the what he's demonstrating. So he's
the line constantly hitting it, even though it's running a very high frequency. It's about 15 kilohertz. And
so originally he just had a dot on the screen, and because he took the coils, the magnetic coils, off the electron gun, and then he moved the dot up and down. But this is more dramatic. So now he has the scope is back on, and the cart is tracing, and it's tracing at that 15 gigahertz, like I said. And so he gets this bending in the image. But the thing he doesn't point out in this demonstration anywhere is that the cathode and anode on one of these carts is, you know, the electrons are shot from the cathode, and I think this is the right way. And the anode is a screen right behind the glass there. You know, there's phosphorus put on the glass. Well, there's a screen that it's put on, but anyway, it's against the glass. And then behind that, though, is the anode for the electrons. And, you know, it's got a bunch of holes in it, so the electrons go through the holes. And it's a metal screen, the anode. So when he's approaching the metal screen with the magnet, he's creating eddy currents in the anode, and that's all this is demonstrating, is the fact that the magnetic field is creating the field being created in the sheet of metal is creating a magnetic field that's going to create electrical eddy currents, and that's what's bending the beam, bending the electrons. So, you know, so the real point is the electron gun, you know, I don't know how to explain all this, but and also having the coil back on in this circumstance, he has one of the coils back on. The magnet can also affect the coil and magnetize it, you know, creating electricity and then magnetism. So again, he's getting a secondary magnetic field in that coil that's also going to deflect the beam. So again, it's not a very good experiment. It doesn't demonstrate anything. Doesn't you know, so the point is he's saying this demonstration, when he puts the north side of the magnet, it bends it up. When he puts the south side, it bends it down. So that means it's going this way with the north side, and it's going counterclockwise with the south side. And again, this whole idea of it actually, something actually spinning, if there was actually something turning or spinning, you'd be able to create an experiment that would show the spin. You know, why can't they make a single experiment that shows motion if there's actual motion? There's no motion. There's no, magnets aren't creating, you know, perpetual energy. So, I mean, I can stop at one of these images maybe. But, you know, it's all these swirly bits, you know, swirly bits, swirly bits. And he thinks these swirly bits are what's bending the electron beam. You know, because they're spinning this way, the beam went up. And because they're spinning this way, the beam went down. And it's not the right answer. Alright, so the last one is just a... This one's really useful. It's got a lot of views, 70-something thousand. What I remember anyway. 24,000? I thought I had more than that, but anyway. Yeah, I don't know why the slow start to these videos. So it's just music in the background, so I'll just jump ahead to a few of these. So he's got pretty unreadable text placed on top of these images, so it's not really, some of the stuff is not too good, but he has some stuff in motion. Still just getting to this swirly bit idea, and you know, I think this might be animated or something. Not animated either. So all this, somehow this swirly stuff is somehow creating magnetism. So this complex swirly stuff going round and around, swirly, 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 it somehow makes magnets so attractive and so repulsive. And yet there's absolutely no explanation for how that happens. No physical explanation for how all this swirly shit accomplishes that task. And I'd argue this is just because it doesn't. It just doesn't have anything to do with what's really happening inside a magnet. And they're just pretty images, and so that's all people want. Is they want some sort of, you know, phantasmagorical mush. Oh yeah, this, I gotta hit the play button, and then yeah, I knew it was animated. So this is what they think magnets are doing. All this stuff is going on inside a magnet. It's just sitting there doing all this, whatever this is, forever and ever, because it has magical forever batteries. And so this is taken a ferrocell image and just animated it with some sort of pretext. This is how these little bits are somehow moving around and blah blah blah. So anyway, so that, yeah, the whole video is just this. There's nothing else in it of value. So there is a channel that has some pictures of under the microscope of what the ferro stuff looks like. Yeah, you can see that pretty well. Good enough. And how they line up. So you know, it zooms in to images of what the ferro material actually looks like. Now the problem is the guy can't do this, you know, in the traditional way. Like, he can't look at the whole pattern and then get a feel for exactly where all the lines up are. So you can't get the idea of where these locations are and how the stuff is lining up. But I guess I would argue that it sort of gives an indication of where you get all this light diffraction from. Because obviously there's a ton of little spaces between them, lots of places for light to reflect, refract, be bent, and you know, create the idea of an image at all these different locations, because it's shooting light in all kinds of different directions through the glass, and it's also causing internal reflections in the glass. But if we could actually see the way they line up, you'd see that their alignment had a consistency. You know, that it's that the pattern wouldn't be this three-dimensional, you know, holographic view kind of thing. You'd see that it's just a bunch of flat material that's in a radiant pattern away from the magnetic center, just as you would imagine compass needles would line up. And the only thing that's creating the bend in that pattern is the viewing angle and the fact that when you're bringing a magnet in, the material on the outside doesn't move as much as the material close to the middle. And so you're affecting the stuff immediately next to the magnet more than you're affecting the stuff further away, and so you can create those bends and turns. But again, it's not evidence of, you know, ferrocells are interesting and pretty and all that crap, but they're not evidence of you're not seeing. What you're seeing isn't what actually is the mechanism creating what you're seeing. The projector isn't projecting an honest image, so to speak. So you can see it's quite an ugly mess from a distance. And it's as you zoom in that you start to see how consistent and coherent the pattern is. Alright, so that's probably enough of that. And I want to get this, anything else regarding that stuff. I mean, it's, you know, beyond the fact that, okay, I can't consider something like this evidence, that's all, I would argue. I mean, it doesn't demonstrate, you know, anything compelling in terms of, to me, explaining how magnets attract and repel. And I think with rational analysis, you can recognize what's really causing the effect is not what you think or what they say is causing the effect, because the test instrument is more complicated than they're conceding. So it's a lot like the interferometer argument, where their beam splitter is more complicated than they're recognizing and is performing an effect that's creating what they're claiming to be the effect caused are manifested by some other mechanism, and it's clearly being caused by their beam splitter. You know, and then they just don't want to acknowledge, you know, a truth. So you have it on both sides. Conventional physics ignores the problems with their assumptions, and pseudo-physics does the same thing. They just cheat all over the place, and they just keep looking for things that look right rather than things that are right. That's how I'd put it anyway. So is there really any point in going any further with this video? Probably not. So again, if anybody knows of any channels that do have any kind of participatory physics conversations, you know, it'd be nice to be able to find people willing to have those conversations. And so you can always email me at ds@draftphysics.com, or you can try the private message system here, but it doesn't always work very well. So anyway, or leave a comment, I don't care. But anyway, this stuff needs to be analyzed. You know, this is another ferrocell image. You know, yeah, that's the one I was on. So this is what they think a magnet is, and somehow they think this creates attraction and repulsion. And you know, they're using some concept of this idea of swirling things. You know, tend to move towards each other when they're moving opposite directions, and then away from each other when they're moving the same direction. You know, clockwise. They'll bounce off of each other, but that's such a small force, such a weak force, and it creates so much turbulence that how could you possibly have that as the mechanism and not be able to detect any of the turbulence in the ether? You know, it's not reasonable. not a reasonable explanation. Alright, so I don't think there's anything else here to crap about. Notice the Stephen Burrow thing. Alright, so we'll just give up and say enough for today. So, got tired in the middle of the video. Sorry about that. So, till next time and such. Yeah, it's enough.